Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all on this beautiful day. So, welcome to our Turning Points in American History. As you recall, the last time we met, we learned about Marbury versus Madison that established the principle of judicial review. And we also looked at the transportation revolution. Does anybody remember what type of transportation got everything going regarding, trade and really transporting goods to our city centers? Does anybody?
Canals.
It was canals.
Excellent, yeah, canals, right? Canals and the steamboat. So today we are going to jump ahead to 1816. We are going to look at the expansion of suffrage and the rise of mass politics and the evolution of the ballot box and voting procedures. So we've come quite a long way. So very appropriate since we are 1 week out from election day here, right? Does anybody have any projections? You think we're going to have a larger voter turnout? Are people motivated? So you can go ahead and turn on your microphone and chime in.
Well, so far, 50 million people have voted, which is a third of the voting population. So, and it's early. So, I think people are engaged in this election. Now, whether they come out and vote, that's a different story. But people are definitely involved.
I think the real problem is what votes will be counted. And as far as new ways of cheating, what about what they did with the post office, where they dismantled these machines that are used exclusively for counting votes and put in unofficial ballot boxes that were not sanctioned and then refused to take them down. So it'll be very interesting to see how this all turns out, but I predict some mayhem ahead, alas.
They had, how many days they can begin, accepting them after a postmark.
Right.
Every state is different. New Jersey's different,
And that's the problem. And that's the problem with the presidential election. It's state by state rules. The president is not elected nationally; he's elected by each state. And there's no rules that go across the country to make it so every state has the same rules for a presidential election.
Uniform. That's a great point. So, okay, this day in history, are you ready? I think these are fairly easy. So I think everyone should be getting an A+ today. If not, I'll give you all an A+. It's one of those kinds of days. On this day in 1904, this system opens in New York City. What was it? I gave it away to you.
Subway.
Subway.
Everybody should shout out Subway because I gave it away to you. And on this day in 1858, this future president is born. Who was it? I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a very generous hint. One of my family members is named for him. If you know.
Teddy Roosevelt?
Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt.
Roosevelt.
Excellent. Everyone should be shouting out. You all know me, right? Future President Theodore Roosevelt is born in New York City to, of course, a wealthy family. As we know, can you recall where he went at the end of 1884?
We went out to one of the out west, like Montana.
Okay, so where west? We have to be a little specific.
Yellowstone?
No, not Yellowstone.
No, Yosemite.
A little closer. A little
North
closer.
Carolina.
No.
A little closer.
It was prior to him then becoming, getting involved with the Rough Riders. This inspired him.
The Black Hills in South Dakota?
Excellent. You're a winner. Yeah, so he went to the Dakota Territories. It's known as the Badlands. Okay. The rise, like the religion, religious organizations still have, some weight in our country, or do you think, not so much, not as important?
I think it's on the wane in the sense that younger people are less likely to affiliate with,
Yeah.
So for instance, I know that in many Catholic dioceses, they've had to shut down, some of the schools, and that and that kind of thing, which didn't used to be the case. And, but what's interesting, now that we can't have services because of the pandemic, and all we have to do is go to our computers and Zoom in, our congregation is getting people Zooming in from all over the country, and in some cases, the world.
Points. Does anybody have any other comments regarding religion?
Yeah, I don't know. I only know from my girlfriend whose grandchildren go to a Catholic school, and they had to turn people away because so many wanted their kids because they can go they're back to normal.
Oh, for the pandemic. So they're
For the
schools open.
pandemic.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's happening in a lot of Catholic schools now, that they're full because parents want their kids back in school.
Versus a public school option where, doors are shuttered, or they have
Right.
this, half-day type program. Yeah, that's a great point, Carol. Great
But
point.
there's a couple of different issues here. One is, people's participation in a religious organization versus how does religion affect society. And, legally, if you look at what's going on in the courts and stuff and what goes on in Congress, a lot of positions on social issues are based upon their so-called belief in their religion. I'll say it that way, how they manifest their religion, not necessarily their life, how they use it as a crutch or a tool to get what they want or to present what they want. So it's a different perspective than people, getting on Zoom. We have Zoom services too. People come in because it's the only real socialization they have, or with a large group of people. So it's not so much necessarily the religious aspects potentially, but the social aspects. And, it's be interesting to see studies that come out of that over the years about what happened in the Zoom environment when people did look like they're participating more. But what happens when it goes back to real life, hopefully, and you go back to the buildings that you were in previously? Do these people continue to, go to services? Do they continue to participate? Or they go back to their habits when they were beforehand, when they never came as often?
That's an excellent point, Stan, regarding, the fellowship component of it. And, when you were in person, did your congregation or denomination, did they have a fellowship component and that socialization component? And now we're at a socialization deficit. So that's a great point that, at one point we're watching sports on ESPN from 1980, like we had nothing left. We were all desperate. So, it's interesting to see what will happen when, lives, return to some sort of normal.